Welcome to a special episode of Called Bank Sports. We finally know who the Jazz are playing in the first round, which is really exciting. We're recording this right after the game. You probably won't be seeing it until Saturday morning, which reminder, our bracket challenge will be due before the playoffs start. And those first games start in the afternoon on Saturday. So if you've seen this now, you may still have a little bit of extra time. Send those in, and even if it's in the first quarter of the first game, we might be feeling forgiving tomorrow. So go ahead and send it in anyway. We're excited to see how this goes. All the links to that, if you don't have the bracket information, all the links to the rules and everything will be in this video. And yeah, so check those out. Email them to us. But let's talk about the series. The Jazz will be playing the Grizzlies, which when I knew who was in the playing games, I thought this was the perfect realistic scenario because I didn't think the Spurs even had a chance of making it. And I was scared. I didn't want to play the Lakers, and Steph Curry's always scary. But looking at this, I don't think the Jazz should feel like this will be an easy series because this Grizzlies team, they're not on the Jazz level, but they have some good pieces, and they may be able to pull off a few victories against the Jazz.
Here's what I think is most interesting about the Jazz facing the Grizzlies. So if you go to the Jazz schedule, the Jazz played the Grizzlies 4 times over the course of 6 days. That's the closest they did. So they played Friday, March 26th, then the 27th, played Cleveland in between, and then played Memphis on March 31st. So this is the team that the whole year, they basically played them like it was a playoff series. So they were able to go, and while they were definitely close games, and we can get more into those games here in a minute, they were able to win all 3 of those games. And one of them they didn't have Mike Conley, and one of them they didn't have Donovan Mitchell. So it's definitely going to be a tussle, and you have some great stats to talk about. But I really am predicting. I really think the Jazz are going to at least get a gentleman's sweep. It could go to 6, but I just think it's going to be. I think the Jazz are going to win in 5, could even win in 4.
Yeah, and the Jazz are a much better team. And like you said, we beat them without Conley and Mitchell. But I'm pretty sure for all 4 games that we played the Grizzlies, Jaren Jackson Jr. was out. And he only played 11 games this season, so we're probably not going to see him full strength. He did play tonight. He's healthy to play. So the Jazz need to expect to see him in the entire series. But last season when he wasn't injured, I believe he was their second highest scorer. This season, obviously, only played 11 games, and he was their 4th highest scorer. But he could come in and have a great performance, so that's something to look at. But you did mention I have the stats pulled up for both the Jazz and the Grizzlies. And this is just a quick overview. I'm not going to go super in depth, but this is kind of to show that even though the Jazz are really good, it's not like the Grizzlies are so far behind them. But looking at the season, the Jazz averaged 3 more points per game. The Jazz averaged, let's see, where is it? The Jazz averaged about 2 rebounds more per game. They averaged 3 assists less. They averaged 3 or 2.5 steals less. They averaged about the same number of blocks, and they averaged 2 more turnovers. So it's like obviously scoring is there, and one other quick stat to look at is Grizzlies versus Jazz 3-point shooting. The Jazz had the Grizzlies by like 3.3%, which doesn't seem like a lot. But that's the difference between shooting. Like the Grizzlies are close to 35%. The Jazz average about 39% on the year, which is incredible.
And when you're looking at how many 3-pointers the Jazz are getting up versus how many 3-pointers the Grizzlies are getting up, I mean, Jazz are averaging over 40 a game, and I'm sure the Grizzlies are averaging less. I don't have that specific number, but that 3% like just compounds significantly with how many shots the Jazz take from behind the arc.
And just to give you that number, the Jazz take 12 more threes per game than the
Oh my
Grizzlies.
gosh.
That's huge.
No, I mean, that's absolutely crazy. I think that, like you were saying, I mean, they are pretty close. And David Locke tweeted out he has a spreadsheet with the Jazz defensive and offensive performances. So in the games, the 3 games, the Jazz had their 29th best, 40th best, and 60th best offensive games. So kind of middle of the pack there. You know, they had one a bit better, one about average, and then a pretty bad one. Then defensive, they had their 53rd, 26th, and 39th. So again, like the Jazz never had any amazing games against the Grizzlies. They did play really well. And I think that overall, the fact that the Grizzlies, they played on last Sunday in Golden State, then they had to fly to play in Memphis on Wednesday. Now they had to fly back to Golden State to play tonight. Now they're going to stay in California tonight. Tomorrow, fly to Utah. So they're coming from sea level to go to Utah to play at, 4,000 plus feet elevation. Absolutely had to play their hearts out the last couple games. I don't think that, even though it's close, I don't think Memphis is going to have enough energy, even if they have a bit more rhythm than the Jazz at the start of the game. I think Memphis is just going to be so exhausted come Sunday that they're going to give up that game. And this is going to be the first time that Memphis has really played in front of fans this whole season. So I predict the Jazz to go 2-0, even if Donovan's out, to be honest, these next couple of games, and to take both of the first playoff games at home.
Yeah, and they definitely should, especially when you look at it from a matchup standpoint. I think the only matchups that I could say the Grizzlies have it on, it's only one matchup, and that's Ja Morant and Mike Conley. I think Ja Morant will win that matchup, but at the same time, Mike Conley is a good defender. He's a veteran player. He's been in the playoffs. Ja Morant may have a couple good games, but I wouldn't be shocked if Mike Conley comes and shuts down Ja Morant for a game or two this series. And the Grizzlies have other good players, but I'll take Gobert over Valanciunas every day of the week. And then you have Dillon Brooks, he's good on offense, so maybe he'll outperform Royce O'Neal or whoever we put to guard him offense to offense, but Royce O'Neal totally has the ability to shut down someone like Dillon Brooks.
Yeah. I think that Royce is probably going to be the one guarding Ja Morant. I think that you're going to see Mike, maybe not on Dillon Brooks. I don't know who you're going to see him on, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to see Royce on Ja Morant, just because he definitely is their number one offensive option. So Royce typically picks up that matchup there, but maybe Mike's going to be on Grayson Allen, who I'm interested how he feels about his relationship with Utah, and if he feels like he has a lot to prove, or if he's just happy he got more playing time in Memphis. But holy crap, Grayson Allen tonight had an absolutely astounding game. He went 4 for 5 from 3. He is very much a part of why they won this game. I mean, those were the only 4 shots he made, so he only put up 12 points. But he had a couple of clutch threes in overtime, and obviously when the game goes to overtime, those 2 threes he made in regulation were vital to them extending the game that long.
He's turned into a really good hustle player. I'd kind of compare him to a Jay Crowder. But to bring up, it is interesting to see him come back to Utah, especially in the playoffs. I did go to one of the Grizzlies games this year, and I saw him, and you know how Joe Ingles talks to everyone. Some people hate it, some people love it. But I saw them talking back and forth the whole game, and it seemed very friendly, like they were enjoying the conversation that they were having. So he's going to come and compete. I enjoy watching him, and as far as I can tell, there's no bad blood between him and the Jazz organization.
No, I don't think there is. And so I'm just overall really excited to just watch the Jazz get a playoff matchup that finally I think they're going to be able to win. Since obviously the last couple of seasons, they could have beat Denver. It was close. I think they were very capable of beating Houston. They just needed a couple shots just went the wrong way, and Houston was obviously the better team. But the Jazz were close on that. I mean, they almost sent it to a game 6, and if one other shot falls differently along with that, then going into game 6, the Jazz are up 3-2 instead of being down, instead of losing in 5. So this is going to be just a great way to get Donovan Mitchell back into the lineup, introduce playoff basketball back to Salt Lake City and back to Vivint Smart Home Arena after way too long of it not being there just because of COVID. And I don't think I can truly express how excited I am for this Sunday.
I've been like from the season tip, I've been so excited to see where this team ended up in the playoffs. It's going to be so much fun to watch them. It's crazy that we ended up here. I would have never thought that. But this is the time where we're all just going to tune in and focus on basketball, where it all really matters. So I'm excited. I'm super nervous at the same time, though.
Yeah.
As I'm sure every Jazz fan is, because we know what we can achieve. But if we fall short of that, that's really nervous, because we know there's a lot of good teams in between us and that championship, which we know we're capable of.
I mean, this is the deepest the West has ever been in my living memory. Like, yeah, there's been times when the 8th seed has pulled up an upset over the 1 seed, and I don't think that's going to happen this year just because the Jazz got really lucky in having it be Memphis. But the fact, when you look at 1 through 7, and if they win the title, you're not like, what? I mean, if they win the title, you're like, yeah, no, I can see that. Like, some balls might have had to bounce the right way, but it's not going to be something that's astounding. It's not going to be, and I always bring this up, it's not going to be Dallas beating the Heat. I mean, if any team 1 through 7 wins, like, even if Dallas pulls it off this year, I think it would have to be KP all of a sudden coming back and being crazy healthy. But I mean, when you have Luka Doncic, like, anything's possible.
And yeah, it's true that any team there, it's almost like there's no upsets except for with the Jazz 1-8 matchup in the West.
Yeah,
everything's fair game. I will be like, and this is my prediction. We'll fill out our brackets and post them on social media if you follow us there, and you can kind of see what we think. But I haven't filled mine out yet, but I'm leaning towards not having the Nets make it out of the East. But if they do,
really?
Imagine a healthy Nets coming in. Anyone beating that team will be like David and Goliath, because everyone's going to favor the Nets so hard, especially if it's a small market team like the Jazz or the Suns.
Well, I mean, nobody's got to play the Nets this whole year. So we're basically saying, how good are they, and can they just mesh and get this together? And we've obviously seen in the past that, like last year with the Clippers being, I feel like, the best comparison, but even then that's kind of unfair because of the bubble. We've seen that it's really hard to mesh in the playoffs. But the Clippers need to play as a team, while the Nets need to play as a team. You have 3 of the best ISO scorers of all time. I mean, going in order of James Harden, Kevin. Well, I mean, I have a hard time. I think James Harden might be a better ISO scorer, but Kevin Durant's probably the better scorer.
If Kevin Durant took as many shots as James Harden, he would be like the best scorer of all time.
Yeah. So, I mean, when Kyrie Irving, as much as he irks some people, including me, when he's your 3rd best offensive player, I mean, you're going to go places, even if you can't play defense, because even the Jazz or the Knicks, which were 2 of the best offenses of the whole season, how are they going to stop the Nets? Like, riddle me that. Who do you have guarding who?
Yeah.
I feel like you have to somehow play zone almost.
Yeah, and in order for, if you don't have star power against the Nets, and even if you do have star power, like if you're the Sixers or the Bucks, on defense, you still need to be like your best defense you've ever played, just to like compete with that team when they're healthy and firing on all cylinders.
So, out of curiosity, who do you want feasibly coming out of the East? If the Jazz make it to the finals, who do you want to face?
I don't think this will happen, but for the storyline, I would love to play the Sixers. I
Storyline,
think
yes.
I think that would be an incredible series to watch if both teams are healthy. That would be one of the best final series we've seen in a very long time. Um, I think it's a lot more likely if the Nets aren't making it out. I think the Bucks, and I feel like the Jazz would have a much better chance at beating the Bucks than a
Yeah.
healthy Sixers team.
Who do I want to see the Jazz play? The Bucks. Like you said, the Jazz are built to beat the Bucks. They destroyed them twice this year. They're just built to beat the Bucks, and maybe the Bucks are going to turn on a switch come playoff time, but I don't think so. Storyline, like you said, Rudy Gobert, Ben Simmons for the DPOY controversy, which shouldn't be a controversy. I mean, Gobert's the DPOY, like hands down. Ben Simmons, Donovan Mitchell for the Rookie of the Year controversy. Rudy Gobert versus Joel Embiid for the who's the better center. That would be crazy. I definitely would still prefer to see the Bucks, but storyline, that would be the most intriguing storyline. And
Yeah.
then just outright legacy would be the Nets. So legacy,
Yeah.
Nets, storyline Sixers, and then winning Bucks.
Yeah, and with the Sixers, even to build on that, each fan base, probably the Sixers more so nationally because Utah's a small market and not a lot of people know about the Utah fan base. But each fan base is very like heated, and it really gives each team a home court advantage,
Yeah.
especially when you've gone as far as the finals. So that won't play as much of a role this year. Maybe by the time the finals happen, we get mostly full stadiums, but that would be awesome to watch.
Yeah, I mean, with the Jazz being at 70% capacity right now, I'm really hoping they're going to be able to get it up to 100. I think especially if Utah keeps going where they're going with vaccines, and now that 12 to 15-year-olds can get vaccinated, with everyone masked up, I think that you could easily fill that place to capacity. And dang, those masks might make the cheers a tiny bit quieter, but that's still not going to be enough for the opponent because Viven's going to be rocking.
It's not going to do much.
Vivint is going to be rocking.
I'm excited. Obviously, we have to have there's the West to get through, and even if we get through the West, there's going to be a really good opponent waiting there from the East for us.
Yeah.
But I'm super psyched. I'm optimistic, and even if it turns out a little sour that we don't get the outcome we want, there's going to be a lot of really good basketball coming up. So just as a basketball fan, like take time to enjoy a Western Conference this deep, where almost every series is going to be some of the best basketball you'll see all season.
I think I can speak for pretty much all Jazz fans, Dale, when I'm saying we are joining you in being a Mavs fan for the Mavericks Clippers series, since I'd much rather see Luka than see Kawhi and Paul George, just with how deep the Clippers are. So yeah. I know that's who I'm cheering for in that game tomorrow. No, they're not. I mean, we can get into it. I still think the Seth Curry trade was one of, I totally see where they wanted to go with it, but one of the worst trades of all time. Like, I kind of saw it at the time, then I started hearing about like stats and stuff, and did not work out for the Mavs. I think the Mavs finish much better if they keep Seth Curry.
It was a good 2K trade.
Hey, when's the last time Seth Curry hasn't, I guess last year Seth Curry was in the playoffs, but dang, we've had more representation from Seth Curry these last couple of playoffs than we've had from Steph Curry.
What if Seth Curry gets the ring this year? There's a chance.
Oh my gosh, that would be hilarious. That would be like Eli going and getting his Super Bowl ring.
This will go off on a tangent.
Did Eli get it first? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I'm too lazy to Google it.
But, I don't know if I want to go off on this whole tangent. Maybe I'll leave it for the comments and we can have an argument in the comments about it.
Okay.
But here's a question that I saw, and I won't tell you my opinion, but I'll tell you what everyone else was saying. Maybe I'll tell you my opinion. I might be lying. But the question was, so Kendrick Perkins says that it's a lot harder to win a championship in the NBA than the NFL.
Oh.
And then there's some NFL players saying, no, that's bogus because it's a single elimination tournament. And from what I'm seeing, everyone on social media is saying it's much tougher to win in the NFL, and the main reason I'm seeing is single elimination tournament. And I did see some of it's easier to stack an NBA team than an NFL team.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I definitely lean and I definitely win that it's easier to win. Well, that it's easier for the favorite to win in the NBA. So I'll say it's easier in the NBA just because, like you said, it's single elimination. So you catch fire and that one running back has a great game and you can win versus, needing to catch fire for a whole series to win 4 out of 7.
So if you're the favorite, I'd say it's definitely easier in the NBA. But for any team, like the Giants equivalent in the NBA would never win a championship.
Yeah.
Eli Manning Giants, if there's an NBA team equivalent, they'd be making the playoffs, but they'd never win a championship.
So you're saying the Dallas Mavericks with Dirk would never win a champion? I need to go back and look.
Maybe, and
maybe.
miracle
I
runs
getcha.
are like, well, and it's harder to have a miracle run in the NBA, but it's happened, I guess. So,
and maybe I say that Dallas came out of nowhere too much. I'll have to go back and look at that in the history. But thank you everyone for watching the playoff preview. Remember, if you still have time, get in your bracket. The link and the email to send it into are in the description. You can win up to a $250 Jazz team store or NBA store gift card, depending on our subscriber count. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and join us in this epic finals run that we are hoping the Jazz will have. Let us know your thoughts on the upcoming game in the comments, and we're definitely going to yak it up in there. So thanks so much again for tuning in, and go Utah.